Single dad sees a woman abandoned at bus stop. What he does will move you. Rain hammered the empty roadside bus stop as Amir pulled his worn jacket tighter around his shoulders and checked the time for the third time in a minute. His night shift at the warehouse had drained every bit of energy from his body. All he wanted was to get home before his young daughter woke up, so he could make her breakfast and braid her hair the way she liked. The city usually buzzed even at this hour, but tonight the streets were strangely quiet, the kind of quiet that made every passing car sound louder than usual. As he stepped under the cracked plastic shelter, he noticed he wasn't alone. At the far end of the bench sat a woman, soaked from the rain, her posture stiff with exhaustion. A small suitcase rested near her feet, partly unzipped with clothes pushing out. In her arms a toddler slept, wrapped poorly in a thin scarf that was no match for the cold wind. The child's shoes were different colors, and one sock was missing. Amir looked away at first. City life had taught him caution. Getting involved often meant getting trapped in someone else's chaos. He told himself the next bus would come. Other people would pass. Someone else would help. Still, he found his eyes drifting back. The woman wasn't just waiting. She looked stranded, like someone left behind by more than a late bus. A strong gust blew rain into the shelter. The toddler stirred and whimpered. The woman tried to shield the child with her own body, shivering as she did. Without fully deciding to, Amir walked closer. "Are you okay?" he asked gently, keeping his voice low so he wouldn't startle her. She looked up quickly, fear flashing in her tired eyes before softening. I think so," she said, though it clearly wasn't true. "My bus left early. My phone battery died. I don't know this area." He glanced at the empty road display. The next bus wouldn't arrive for nearly 2 hours. "Have you been here long?" he asked. She nodded. "Since before the rain." Amir exhaled slowly, then turned and jogged across the street to a small tea stall that was just opening. He bought 2 hot cups of tea and a packet of biscuits, with the last loose cash in his pocket. When he returned and handed them to her, her fingers trembled so badly she nearly dropped the cup. "Thank you," she whispered, voice breaking. He sat on the other end of the bench, not too close, not too far, watching the rain fall harder and knowing he couldn't just walk away now. The toddler woke with a sharp, frightened cry just as the wind pushed another wave of rain into the bus stop. The woman tried to rock him gently, whispering soft reassurances, but her teeth were chattering so badly the words barely formed. Amir could see the child's hands, red from cold, gripping her sleeve. Without thinking twice, he removed his thick wool scarf and held it out. "Please wrap him with this," he said. She hesitated out of politeness more than doubt. "No, you'll need it." "I'm used to the cold," Amir replied. He isn't. She accepted it quietly and tucked it around the toddler, who slowly settled, his crying fading into soft hiccups. Up close, Amir could see how exhausted she really was. Dark circles under her eyes, hair stuck to her face, lips dry from dehydration. This wasn't just a missed bus. This was a collapse of a plan. Between pauses and sips of hot tea, her story came out in fragments. She had traveled to the city after being promised a housekeeping job by someone who contacted her through a distant acquaintance. The messages had sounded professional. The offer included housing and advance pay. But when she arrived, the number stopped working. The address led to a locked building. She had spent her small savings trying to reach the person again and waiting nearby, hoping it was a mistake. "No one came," she said, staring into the empty cup. "I kept thinking, maybe tomorrow morning. Maybe one more call. Do you have any relatives here?" Amir asked. She shook her head. "My family told me not to come. I didn't listen. I thought I could fix everything quickly and send money home." Her voice cracked. "Now I can't even go back." Amir leaned back and looked at the dark road. Her words pulled up memories he rarely touched. Standing alone years ago in a hospital corridor, holding his newborn daughter, while paperwork was placed in his hands and condolences were spoken in gentle tones. No partner, no plan, just responsibility and fear mixed together. "The city can be harsh," he said quietly. "It tests people first, then decides if they can stay." She gave a weak, humorless smile. "I think I already failed." He checked the transit board again out of habit, though he knew the answer. 2 more hours. The public night shelter would open around dawn, but he also knew it usually filled before opening. He looked at the child, now sleeping again inside his scarf, and felt the decision forming, heavy, risky, but clear. He wasn't the kind of man who made big speeches about kindness. He just remembered what it felt like when no one stopped to ask. Amir stood there for a long moment, listening to the rain drum against the plastic roof, weighing responsibility against caution. He thought of his small one-room apartment. The peeling paint, the narrow kitchen, the single heater that only worked if you kicked it once. It wasn't much, but it was dry and warm. More importantly, his daughter would be there soon, getting ready for school, filling the space with her chatter and careless trust in the world. He turned back to the woman. "There is a night shelter," he said slowly, "but it won't open for a while. And even then, it's often full." Her shoulders sank, as if the last thin thread of hope had snapped. She hugged the toddler closer without replying. Amir rubbed his tired eyes. He knew what people would say. Don't bring strangers home. Don't invite problems. Think of your child. He did think of his child. That was exactly why this felt impossible to ignore. "My place is close," he continued carefully. "It's small. Very small. But it's safe. You and your son can warm up there and rest until morning. Then we can figure out something proper." She looked up sharply, searching his face for hidden intent. Suspicion was natural. He respected it. "Why would you do that for us?" she asked. "Because cold doesn't wait for background checks," he answered softly. "And neither should kindness." She studied him another few seconds, then gave a tiny nod, not fully trusting, but too exhausted to refuse mercy. The walk was short but difficult through puddled streets and broken sidewalks. Amir carried the small suitcase when he noticed her struggling. The toddler slept against her shoulder, wrapped snugly now. Dawn was beginning to thin the darkness when they reached his building, old, concrete and stained by time. Inside, he climbed the stairs quietly and unlocked the door. The familiar scent of detergent and tea leaves greeted him. A moment later, small footsteps pattered from inside. "Papa?" his daughter's sleepy voice called. "I'm here," he replied gently. She appeared at the doorway, hair messy, a blanket around her shoulders, and froze when she saw the guests. Her eyes widened, then unexpectedly she smiled. "Are they staying with us?" she asked. "For a little while," Amir said. The woman looked overwhelmed again, but this time not from fear. As his daughter hurried to bring her extra blanket without being asked, the tightness in the woman's face finally loosened. For the first time since the bus stop, she looked like someone who could breathe. Morning light filled the small apartment, turning its cracked walls golden and warm. Amir moved quietly in the kitchen, cooking eggs and toasting bread, while his daughter chatted happily at the table with the toddler, who was now fully awake and fascinated by her toy car. The woman sat nearby, hands wrapped around a cup of tea, still looking like she couldn't believe she was indoors, safe and dry. Every few seconds her eyes glistened again, as if relief kept arriving in waves. "No one has been this kind to us," she said softly. Amir shrugged. "Eat first." Big decisions are easier on a full stomach. After breakfast, reality returned. Kindness was one thing, stability was another. He couldn't let them drift back to the street. While the children played on the floor, he stepped aside and began making calls during his short rest window before sleep. Most numbers led nowhere. A few contacts said they were full. One suggested trying next week. He kept going. Finally, his old co-worker Rahim answered. Rahim now helped manage a neighborhood community center that ran skill programs and emergency support for women with children. Amir explained the situation plainly. No exaggeration, no drama. "There is one opening," Rahim said after a pause. "Temporary helper role in the tailoring unit. Small pay, but includes daycare corner. If she's willing to work, I'll register her today." Amir thanked him twice and ended the call with a tired smile. When he shared the news, the woman covered her mouth and began to cry, deep, shaking sobs that released days of fear. "I can sew," she said through tears. "My mother taught me. I can work hard. I just needed a chance." "Good," Amir replied gently. "That's all this is. A chance. By afternoon, Paperwork was started and a temporary hostel bed was arranged through the center, cleaner and safer than the night shelter. Before leaving, she stood awkwardly near the door, unsure how to say goodbye properly. "I arrived in this city with one suitcase and a lie," she said. "Today I leave this room with truth and work. I will not forget this." His daughter hugged the toddler like an old friend. Amir simply nodded. "When you're settled," he said, "that will be thanks enough." Weeks later, a printed invitation card arrived. Under his door, a small tailoring stall opening, her name on the sign. At the bottom she had written one line: "You didn't just help us survive, you helped us restart."